on. So on behalf of department management, we do apologize, sir, Professor, for any inconvenience. Because the first one would be the link itself that might be could be an issue for some people right now. And then we are sincerely grateful to have you here. And I also already mentioned and called some of our my colleagues, including Pak Ganjar as well, actually. So without further ado, because probably you have another agenda later, we will divide this session into two parts. The first one would be the presentation from Professor Fandy Tjiptono for 40 minutes or 45 minutes maximum. And then we have another Q&A session with all the attendants, including with me as well. So without further ado, Professor Fandy Tjiptono, the session is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the time and invitation. Before I entered this link, I noticed that there was a problem with the link provided. I think there's some error with the Zoom ID. One number was missing. So, but that's okay. Now, let me share with you this wonderful opportunity. I was asked to share my research and my views about social entrepreneurship, especially during pandemic. That was the topic provided by Professor Ganjar. So here, I will share with you my research with my colleagues, my team, about social entrepreneurship published in 3 different journals. Now, I would highlight the research and practical issues, especially when we talk about social entrepreneurship as an emerging practice and research field. Now, I think I would not spend too long for my presentation. I would like to have more Q&As from you. The first part, I would like to briefly discuss about the introduction, why or how important the topic is. And then I would highlight the social entrepreneurship as an emerging perspective and practice. And in the final session, final part, I would propose some important or interesting research agenda and practical issues in regards to social entrepreneurship, especially in the Indonesian context. Now, my interest in entrepreneurship in general and social entrepreneurship has started a couple of years ago. Before I joined Victoria University of Wellington, I worked at Monash University for 4.5 years. In my last couple months, I involved in what we call EI Hub, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Hub, a center developed by the School of Business at Monash University, Malaysia. I was appointed as deputy director of that center. And then I realized that entrepreneurship at that time has grown rapidly, especially among young generation. Now, I continued my interest recently, even though my main interests, if you can say, my areas include consumer behavior and marketing strategy or marketing practices in developing countries. But social entrepreneurship is something very relevant, very closely related to marketing and consumer behavior anyway. Now, one report that really struck me, that really drew my attention to social entrepreneurship in Indonesia, if you are familiar with this report, a research conducted on and sponsored by British Council, the report titled Developing an Inclusive and Creative Economy, the State of Social Enterprise in Indonesia. That report highlights several interesting findings. I just cited some of insightful key findings here. I love the statement here. I use the quotation here. Social enterprises harness trade, investment, and business activity towards social and environmental objectives and are increasingly recognized as the critical drivers of innovation for sustainable development. If we look at this statement, it says something about investment, social and environmental objectives or missions, and also innovation and sustainability. So at the same time, social entrepreneurship is so important. Now, this report really provided me with a kind of motivation to do a further study about the phenomenon among Indonesian youths. One of the key findings is that young leaders are dominating the social enterprise sector. The research was completed this report was published in 2018, just before COVID-19. But we can see some relevance of the key findings. So 46% of those being surveyed or being studied by British Council were those aged between 25 and 34 years old. So they involved in social entrepreneurship. This is really striking. This information is so important. And then they reported that social enterprise leaders plan to grow their business and impact using 5 strategies. If you look at the literature about social entrepreneurship, basically social entrepreneurship is a kind of hybrid between commercial logic and social mission. So it's not surprising if a good social enterprise will highlight or will focus on practices based on business models. See here, developing and launching new products, attracting new customers. Welcome, Professor Gancha, customers or clients. And then how to increase loyalty among their current customers or their beneficiaries, and also the donors and general public, and how to expand into new geographic areas, as well as in our discussion before we begin this session, this is always the issue among many entrepreneurs, including social entrepreneurs, how to attract investment to expand further out, or in other words, how to scale up the business. Now, the same report also provided us with some important information like how social enterprises in Indonesia developed and also the issues they faced. Here, funding and human resources are always the main challenges. We found that this is not uncommon. In other words, because most of entrepreneurs in Indonesia, general entrepreneurship or even social entrepreneurship, it consists of micro, small, and medium enterprises. So it's not surprising that lack of capital was cited as the key issue here. And I'm so interested in this fact, what they found. They estimated that there were around 342,000 social enterprises in Indonesia. From research perspective, this is a very potential context to be investigated. And then we knew that in Indonesia, most social enterprises were in creative industries, handicraft, artwork, fashion. I think in my experience, when I work at Atmajaya University in Yogyakarta, helping students to go for the PIMNAS or something like that, the national competition for entrepreneurship, most of the ideas from students were about handicraft, food, things like that, isn't it? Agriculture, and then education. Okay, so this is a background why social entrepreneurship is very interesting. From my experience, this report provided me with a very insightful idea about why my team and I decided to investigate further social entrepreneurship phenomenon among Indonesian youth. Okay. Now, that triggered our study. So far, we completed 3 publications at 3 different journals, and then we still have ongoing research projects. I would like to use this opportunity for us to discuss about some relevant issues. Who knows, we can collaborate if you are interested in social entrepreneurship. I think that was the idea from Ganjar also, like we try to explore some sweet spots, what we call, like areas that we might, like fit or collaborate, complement each other. So this background from a report from British Council triggered our research project. And then recently we published a paper in the Jakarta Post based on our 2 published papers about why social entrepreneurship is gaining traction among youths in Indonesia. And we just noticed that Jakarta Post and the Star, the Malaysian newspaper, they have somehow, like collaborations, because days after our paper was published in Jakarta Post, it was reprinted in the Star in our neighbor country. So we are happy. With one paper, we can reach broader audience. So in our paper, actually, we talk about why young generation is so interested, so keen to be social entrepreneurs. I will explore that in the next couple of slides here. Okay, in this article, you can search, you can Google why social entrepreneurship is gaining traction among youths. We begin with a discussion about social entrepreneurship itself. As you know, any concept, any field in management, we always have so many definitions. Whatever it is, when you name it, management, leadership, because I also did management in my undergrad. People in management and marketing love definitions. They try to twist here and there and come out with something fancy and call it, like different definitions. Same with social entrepreneurship. If you go Googling, you will find so many papers, meta-analysis or literature review, focusing on how the definition, to date, we don't have one universally agreed on definition of social entrepreneurship. However, if we look into those definitions clearly, basically they have similarities. The basic idea is using social or business mechanisms or business strategies, business logics to tackle social issues, or in other words, hybrid, a combination between commercial and welfare logics to operate organizations. And this is different from a business company doing CSR, where the social mission is, it seems like, to be an extension part of the current business. The biggest challenge for many SEs actually is how to combine the business ideas and social mission. For some people, they question that as mixing water and oil, right? But this is the real challenge. Now, my concern, my team and I, we were so interested in understanding why do some people, especially young generation, choose to become social entrepreneurs. If we ask many departments in Indonesia, management departments, are we preparing our graduates to become managers, directors, or entrepreneurs? But seldom a statement saying that we prepare them to become social entrepreneurs, isn't it? Our curriculum is mostly business oriented, to be honest, isn't it? What factors drive them to take the plunge? Okay. Now, in my first published work, we did a systematic or scoping review of literature, but interestingly, because we tried to find areas that was not heavily investigated by other researchers, we end up with, why don't we focus on a specific region. And then we started with Greater China because we found that there were enough number of published papers in top journals that we can review. So that was the beginning. Now we look at that in Greater China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China. We look at the literature in that area. We found that there has been little efforts to systematically review what has been studied, what is known, gaps in the field, meaning that what we need to know more, and what opportunities lie ahead. That was our finding in Greater China region. So based on that, we have a feeling that then what about Indonesia? Isn't it? In my view, probably if we want to do something similar to this one, that would be interesting if we can expand that. So for instance, for Southeast Asia, or specifically on Indonesia, we can focus on papers published in Web of Science or Scopus, for instance. It depends what we have known about social entrepreneurship in Indonesia. That could be one area to pursue, okay? Now, we found that based on our lead review, talking about definition, for instance, as I said earlier, there have been so many definitions. We spent time to look into the literature for what I call here mainstream social entrepreneurship literature, or in other words, Western literature, mostly in US, UK, Western countries. So we found that there have been at least 5 main definitions of social entrepreneurship based on several disciplines, starting from organizational behavior, management, nonprofit studies, business ethics, and so on and so forth. But the dominant one is the first one: organizing approach and organizations that combine social and commercial logics. So basically, when people talk about social entrepreneurship, that is a hybrid, combining 2 different logics. Slightly different, if you look at other definitions, they call it marketization of nonprofits. Basically the same, social mission plus business, isn't it? They just repackage that in such a way it looks different, isn't it? Alternative development model from from development studies, especially our colleagues from economics. And then citizen-driven participatory governance is all about public administration. They focus on social entrepreneurship as the way to find a kind of solution where government, private, and the private sector, and then here is the alternative. A tool intended for social change. These are from mainstream literature. What we found in the literature in China, okay, the Greater China, they have their own definitions. However, if we look at this part clearly, right, in closer detail, we found that most definitions are basically adoptions from mainstream definitions. So nonprofits and social working, things like that. However, we found an interesting thing in the literature in Greater China, number 4. We found there was a specific, what we call native or indigenous conceptualization of social enterprises. In many cultures, including in Asian cultures, we might have practices similar to social entrepreneurship, but we never name it social entrepreneurship. It doesn't mean that it's not an SE. Okay. Now I would like to extend this one. In our study about Greater China, we found that, hey, there are some opportunities to work on their localized conceptualization of SE. Go back to my earlier question. What about Indonesia? We haven't had a very unique Indonesian-based theory, maybe you call it gotong royong or whatever concepts about working together, how we can see that as a kind of family-based or society-based initiatives to tackle social issues. Personally, I'm so excited about that one, just like this one. How come other countries can come up with their unique concepts? Why not like for us? Okay. Now, and then that paper, the conceptual paper based on the lit review, then we started our project, simple project here. We started with a very, very simple questions. We know in entrepreneurship literature, studies about entrepreneurial intention has been done heavily. Just like in management, you talk about TPB, theory of planned behavior, why people are interested to do intention to do this and that. Now, we look at that slightly different. As we started from the idea of social entrepreneurship as a hybrid of social mission and business mission, then we think about there must be a tension between these two. If you ask our students, the last year students who are at the contemplation stage to think about their future career, what do you want to do after you graduate? If you are looking for money, are you going to be a business person or work for MNC or apply to become civil servant or being an academic? That is the last choice, I think. If you can't have a better, a better job, just like us, right? Being an academic. So why? And then, okay, we have social value and then commercial value. Then when we look into literature, we found that, okay, public service motivation is a concept well developed in public administration, reflecting the degree or interests of an individual to serve the society. Okay. It has several dimensions if you look into the literature. So, okay, we decided to use this as a proxy for driver for social mission or something like that. And then literature also, especially in business ethics, we found a concept called money ethics, attitude towards money. How important money for our life. We will see success is important. Then in our simple study, we use these two antecedents, how these two relates to social entrepreneurial intentions. And we use entrepreneurial self-efficacy as the mediator. As you can see here, I just show you a sneak peek. You can look, you can download our paper, read the detail in the paper. So I don't have time to go into detail, but this is the main idea. But what we found, all of them are significant if you see all the signs here. But the interesting part is money ethics has a negative effect on social entrepreneurial intention. So it means that if an individual or a student, if you talk about young generation, if they have a high money ethics, a positive attitude towards money, money is so important, they might not be interested to become a social entrepreneur. At the same time, public service motivation is a key driver of social entrepreneurship. What was interesting from this study, and we believe that was the reason why the paper was accepted and published in this journal, we put these two tensions and both are significant, but we can see from the coefficient, public service motivation is stronger than money ethics to drive social entrepreneurial intentions. We might say that, based on our speculation, that was something we can speculate on. However, this was an empirical question until we had some evidence, right? So we follow this study like with another study recently accepted and now is published online in Journal of Business Venturing Insights. we look we look into the same phenomenon but further. See, we look at the same DV, social entrepreneurial intention. This time, we are not focusing on self-efficacy because we know that this variable has been investigated heavily. I hope that I can share also some of our experiences. When we target a journal, they always ask for contribution, right? Something significant in terms of the contribution, or in Indonesia, people always look at novelty, isn't it? Now, we found a very interesting measure developed recently, what people call entrepreneurial passion. In business books, if you go to bookstores online or offline, there have been so many successful business people or coaches, managers sharing their experiences and highlighted that it's so important to pursue your passion. Find your passion, you're gonna be okay, right? However, those statements are basically only published in anecdotal stories without empirical studies. So, on the one hand, entrepreneurial passion was heavily investigated in the general mainstream entrepreneurship literature, but not specifically in social entrepreneurship literature. We brought that into our study. Now, to give you a kind of general idea, entrepreneurial passion has 3 dimensions in that construct. We use EPF, entrepreneurial passion, for founding, because there is differentiated 3 elements: founding, developing, and what is the other one? 3. So founding is initiative ideas, to found or to build or establish a new firm or organization. ME here is money ethics, PSM the same one, public service motivation, but we have MLQ here, which is meaning in life. So we use 2 different sets, two sets of factors. We call it pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest, money related and non-money related. So money ethics is a pecuniary factor, MLQ, PSM as non-pecuniary factors associated with passion. What we found that, if you see from this finding, again, consistent, money ethics has a negative association with SEI. PSM is positive. But more interestingly, entrepreneurial passion is a glue that binds all these factors together. In other words, it plays an important role as a mediator. Passion can be driven by these factors. That's the key thing. Okay. Now, that is like social entrepreneurship emerging, what I can share at this stage. Of course, 1 hour is not enough to map out all the literature about social entrepreneurship. As we know, I just try to trigger discussion, and hopefully we explore some areas, hopefully useful also for any of us here. Now, when we talk about research and practical issues, first of all, I just want to show you, based on our literature review, several relevant theories have been used in this study. So TPB is not the only one, right? I know TPB is so popular. As you see, institutional theory, very popular. Okay, when we look at the phenomenon as micro, meso, or macro phenomenon, formal, informal institutions, empowerment theory, compassion, altruistic behavior, resource-based view, those in strategic management loves this theory, meaningful work, narrative, effectuation, a theory in entrepreneurship, bricolage theory, identity theory. In the literature we studied in China, they use several combinations of theory, sociology, and then psychology, economics, management, social work, and so on. And again, one unique, to be honest, I feel like, wow, in this region, they have their own unique theory, because being a socialist economy, they have their system where they talk about social welfare. Now, as an Indonesian, I found that, this is intriguing. Why don't we do study, an in-depth study about our own country, try to find something that is really unique that we can contribute to the literature about social entrepreneurship, isn't it? If you look at the data, some international agencies, studies, I think like recently they published the annual report about giving behavior. If you look at the giving index, Indonesia is one of the best, the highest in the country in terms of donation, helping strangers, things like that. That is something related to social behavior, isn't it? Altruistic behavior. Sometimes we just do things without being aware about what it is, isn't it? This is the time for us to elaborate into the phenomenon more systematically. Okay, now I try to highlight 4 potential research agenda if we want to expand our contributions in social entrepreneurship literature. First one, broadening the scope of social entrepreneurship. There is an opportunity to do a systematic study about the role of social entrepreneurship in social and systemic change, how we can make a social change using social entrepreneurship approach. Previous studies, people use case study, survey, things like that. We can explore some other research methods. Public behavior change, like talking about smoking, diabetes, that's heavily studied in the literature. Drink driving, if you look at the literatures, and also some areas about social concerns or social issues about unemployment, things like that. And interestingly, in marketing, social marketing especially, this is also one of the key concerns. So basically, we can put together social entrepreneurship and social marketing perspectives at the same time to study how to drive public behavior change, not only individual change. So let's say when we talk about the pandemic, this is a very relevant issue when you talk about vaccination, about stay-at-home orders, about lockdowns, about compliance to instructions. I think this is a global phenomenon everywhere when we have compliance and non-compliance. Sometimes few people can have a significant effect on the whole population. That is an issue that we can use social entrepreneurship or social marketing lenses to study. Pluralistic organizing and organizations. We need to be a bit more systematic when we want to study social entrepreneurship as a hybrid of social and business logic. And second one, localizing through Indonesian theoretical lenses and concepts. I invite you guys, all of our important participants. Probably this is a good areas to explore if we can. Indonesian theoretical lenses and concepts. Recontextualizing SE, strategic research sites, Indonesia, internationalization of SE, that would be wonderful if we can find a study about, or we do a study about SE that goes international. And last but not least, retooling to push the Indonesian SE scholarship forward. As I said earlier, most studies, they do conceptual paper, they do case studies, single case study or few case studies. And then the most popular one is survey. We can explore something else like experiments, mixed methods, or exploring some recent methodologies. Okay, now the last part here, when we talk about practical issues, I found an article which is interesting, published in Forbes, talking about how social entrepreneurs will help us fight COVID-19. The author argued that the world needs social entrepreneurs right now. In time of crisis, social mission is very important. People cannot rely only on governments. Everywhere, this is the global phenomenon. It hits everyone. It disrupts our lives. So there are three areas where social entrepreneurs can help fighting COVID-19. First, addressing gaps in the market and to reach constituents that governments cannot or will not reach them. Economically or socially disadvantaged communities, underserved groups, where social entrepreneurs can be more effective. And then secondary and tertiary challenges. While most governments fight the big issues of health-related issues, some other issues like employment, education, mental health issues can be tackled by social entrepreneurs. And how to rebuild better in the wake of COVID-19. I think this is my brief sharing of ideas about social entrepreneurship. Mr. Tanto,
Okay.
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you
Any
so much
questions, please?
for your time, Prof. Fandy. So we want to open the Q&A discussion. Do we have participants for open mic, let's say? Okay, we have one question from Mr. Ganjar. Could we conduct comparison study for New Zealand and Indonesian students for sociopreneur research?
First of all, Mas Tantowi, I want to say greeting to Pak Fandy Tjiptono. Thank you, Pak Fandy.
Thank you.
Sorry for being late because I have a class.
No worries, no worries. We had a problem in entering the Zoom link.
We have to postpone the class in Wednesday because it's holiday in last Wednesday. So
Maulud,
it canceled to be this Saturday. So sorry first of all. And then it's very interesting topic about social entrepreneur. And I remember the drama Korea startup.
Oh yeah, Susie Bai.
Yeah,
I watched that. I like that.
And they create application for a blind people with AI, artificial intelligence. I remember the name is Noljie. It's not a mistake. So I think it's the example for social entrepreneur, right? So we think about the need for social for the society, that the blind people need help, that government maybe cannot help all people. So they create application that can read, that can give description about what things in front of the blind people. I think it's very interesting for our young student, especially, to give about the perspective, because just like you said, just like you mentioned, most of their entrepreneurship idea is about selling food, selling drink,
handicrafts.
This basic thing that the same thing that they can offer to society. So I think it's very, very interesting to we can give them this is entrepreneur also, that they can solve the problem of social need and they can make commercialization about that. So how about the socialpreneur that already conduct in your university? Is there any startup that we can give us a sample for our student?
I think like because I'm not involved in that one, because that is under Department of Management. We have Atom, what they call Atom Hub. We have special like Center for Entrepreneurship. They also have their own like activities, and of course I know that they have also have done many projects including social entrepreneurship, because we have very concerned. For instance, here we pay special attention to disadvantaged groups like disability groups or Pacifica and Maori groups, and then for those who don't have like access to clean water or the education issues like that. So for instance, a real action from the uni, for instance, especially from the uni or initiatives. Actually, I admire Indonesian universities and schools. During lockdown, everyone can go online all of a sudden. Okay, all lectures are online on YouTube or a Zoom or whatever. And it's compulsory. Wow, wonderful. Here, we cannot make it compulsory. Why? We take into account every single challenges of students. When we went to lockdown last year, March last year, first time like lockdown level 4, we had a transition time before we did that. We make a public holiday. We make a holiday first for 2 weeks. So no lectures to prepare everyone. And then we survey everyone, staff and students who don't have access to internet. And then we provided students with laptops to make sure you have the access, you have the connections. Don't imagine that New Zealand has all good internet connections. No, some areas, rural areas, they also have similar problems with the signals, right? So we have to take into account those students who cannot do that, who cannot go online on Zoom or do like online exams. That's why our policy until today, we do not allow any exams in most courses, except for some subjects like probably in engineering or science. But in my school, no exams, only assignments, quiz, online, things like that. And then we take into account all this kind. And then another issue is because we have international students, of course, right? With our students in China, 5 hours or 6 hours difference. If you say that, okay, all exams at 9 a.m. New Zealand time, wow, it's not fair. There's all the things, like we need to be fair to everyone. And then I said that, wow, like it's unless the infrastructure is very, very good. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, the tricky part is, I like you brought about the startups issues. I like that movie. I like that's TV series, 16 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. It took me back to watch them, all the series. But you mentioned about how the idea came about, right? It's not only about culinary or handicraft. It can be, that idea was from the grandma, right? When the grandma of Susie Bay got a problem with a vision, like deteriorating like vision. And then they thought about how to help grandma. Initially, the idea can start from something, or social issues, things that around us, right? Now, the key characteristic of social entrepreneurship is, yes, we combine social mission and commercial logic. So when we come up, we have innovation, and then we come up with a solution, whatever it is, apps or products or services. There we still have the social mission, not making 100% like profit. Otherwise, you start as a social mission, social idea, but you capitalize, take advantage as a non-SE. That is the thing. But you were right. That is a very interesting, like exploration of ideas. We can start with something around us. Think about that, isn't it? So that's did I answer your question? I think the toughest question must be from the boss normally.
Yeah, that's answering many things, Dr. Fandy. But the important thing is also when they have the idea, just like the startup in the movie, they can find the right person to collaborate. So I think it's difficult for, or not difficult, it's challenging to find the right developer, to find the right people in a, not in a commercial way. Because if we trying to find the one who can develop the application, so it must be costly for a student in Faculty of Economic and Business, because they didn't learn about that, how to develop a program. They are not program developer, right? So they have to find it in a cheap way. That must be so challenging for them. So do you have any solution for that? They have idea, but how to bring up the idea to be a good application and others?
Okay. Now, I identify this question as a consulting related question. No,
Yes.
okay. Now,
we are supervisor for program kewirausahaan mahasiswa also.
in my experience, and also in my reading and my research, this is always the issue, right? When we talk about entrepreneurship in general or social entrepreneurship in particular, opportunity identification is one thing. Opportunity exploitation, that is another thing, with different challenges, different issues. You're right. Like when you look at the history of many ideas, when it started, like startups, right? It always took different roles from different people. Some people are very good in innovation, creating ideas, but do not see or don't have the skills, capabilities to scale up, to see the commercial side, how to make it successful when it enters the market. That's why we need the role of many different parties, like what you call the angel investors, or in my view, the role of university. University is very important to help students to explore ideas, and then to help them even with intellectual property, to finance them, to give them rooms to experiment. In other words, rooms to make errors, isn't it? Make errors in the class, not in the real life. When I'm teaching, I like to use case studies, both successful stories and failed stories. But I always found that learning from mistakes is more insightful than learning from successful stories. Many successful stories are just like Cinderella stories. So for me, when you talk about business, first 2 or 3 years, it could be honeymoon period, right? Wait a bit longer, the company may be gone already. But when you learn about failures, there are some messages there. That's why I taught my students, I don't want you guys to be included in my next case studies 5 years from now as examples of failed stories. So go out, make like big things. So now back to your question. Building the ecosystems of entrepreneurship in general, or social entrepreneurship, is very important. We need to think about the financial side, how to create, and also like the creative side, and then the marketing point of view. That should be under one, one integrated, holistic, center of view. That's why I see many universities, including in US, Babson College, for instance, the best one, they always have like these kind of ecosystems, how to facilitate them. I think university can play an important role if we really think this is an important aspect of our education system. Because in my papers, we also found that like, remember money ethics and then public service motivation have different effects on social entrepreneurships. We also found that in the curriculum of school business, in most school businesses, we teach students about business plan, market research, financial management. Or yes, that is good. But if we heavily focus only on these sides, we forgot about social mission, CSR, altruistic behavior, caring to society, handling social issues. I think that has been missing from many curriculums in Faculty of Business and Economics. That's the thing, like we need to reconsider when we design our curriculum or our course outlines. I think that's my answer for now.
Okay.
Hopefully it satisfies you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
will
Ganjar.
continue to discuss, but after the others.
Okay.
Okay.
Opinion.
Do we have another question here? Okay, Ms. Raras, could you please turn on your microphone?
I saw Adi Permana there.
Oh, so
wait.
you know Adi?
Oh, Adi, you didn't tell your boss.
Oh, Adi.
Halo, Bang.
Ah, did he tell you that we published paper at IMAC and
Oh,
SMAC, book chapter at Springer will be published next month? Oh,
Great,
Adi,
great,
come on,
great.
don't be too
waiting for
low
that.
profile. It shocks your boss.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Okay, Mbak Raras. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the time. It's such an honor today. Finally, I met someone who I always seen in my thesis. I mean,
Oh,
we
thank you.
We always cite your book since we are in undergraduate degree. Such an honor.
Thank you. But not social entrepreneurship, right? It's always about
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah, always about marketing. Yeah, it's also my question. I thought that you will speak about marketing, yeah? So
Yeah.
wow, so is it a trend or it is also connected to my first questions? So even you are shifting your research interest, right? Like you are now more to the social entrepreneurship. Is it a current trend and is it going to be a long term phenomena or only like rising during this pandemic? Please give your opinion. And also because currently I see the trend in customer research behavior, I mean in the marketing or in artificial intelligence. Yeah, every volume they always have this one until three articles about artificial intelligence. Is it also, have you sensed any correlation? I mean, the connection between social entrepreneurship and artificial intelligence also, because I think if we combine those two keywords, it's gonna be like very interesting and have high possibility to get published, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Raras.
Okay, good. Yeah, very, 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 very interesting questions. The first one. Yes, social entrepreneurship is a long-term phenomenon. In my experience, as I said earlier in my introduction, I was a deputy director of EI Hub at Monash before, and then we did several projects and workshops related to entrepreneurship in general and social entrepreneurship. And recently, I'm also serving as an associate editor of a social entrepreneurship journal. So if you see, there are many growing social entrepreneurship journals and then books being published. And we know that as a young field, it has still challenges, like in terms of how it grows. But of course, we know that it's not only a gimmick or a short-term, like buzzword. That's my understanding. And then the second question is very interesting. I try to relate that to social entrepreneurship. You brought about AI, artificial intelligence, that is a good observation when you check on top journals now, journals, any journals in service marketing, especially. If you look at service research, service marketing, even GEMS, they have spatial issues. They always publish now recently about any advanced technologies, AI, robotics, name it. Now, if we look at that and relate that to examples from Ganjar, it's all about innovation, technology, social issues. And if you want to add that, business, right? So how the technology can be used as a kind of innovative way to solve social issues profitably. Now you can put all together, right? Technology, innovation, social issues, business. That would be wonderful, all at the same time. And we can't deny the role of technology. Here in New Zealand, we learn from COVID-19 during lockdowns. Now the technology for QR codes, everyone is doing that, because you have to trace the apps. We learn about technology all of a sudden, very quick, isn't it? Thanks to the pandemic, the positive side. Because in the past, for instance, from our experience, before COVID-19, there were so many debates among lecturers about recorded lectures. But still pros and cons, because some lecturers had a view that if we record all our lectures, students will not come to the class. They prefer studying from home. And then lecture hall, lecture theater, if you see most universities in Australia and New Zealand, you have on your list, you have 200 students. If you go to the lecture theaters, week one, probably you will be lucky if you have 70% of students attending. But see, week 6, it will drop to 20%. The worst, if they have many assignments, they will skip classes. So that is the phenomenon. But with COVID-19, you agree or you disagree, everyone must go with a dual delivery, record all the lectures. And then people learn about Panopto, about Zoom, about Blackboard, things like that. Then this has created different kinds of delivery or services or experiences for our students. So technology is very important. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot. Can I ask one more question about your the newest publication? There's a connection between money ethics and what is the mediator in the middle?
Passion, entrepreneurial passion.
Isn't it meaning in okay, entrepreneurial passion, but the direct relationship is not supported, right?
This one.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not significant. ME to EPF.
Oh, okay.
We found that it's not significant. If they have money, high positive attitudes towards money, their entrepreneurial passion to found a social enterprise is not significantly related.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So if you are interested in this area, I can suggest you entrepreneurial passion is still on in a growing area. You can use this construct or variable to study some related phenomenon. That would be wonderful.
Thanks a lot for the insight. Write it down right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Naras. Thank you, Prof. Fandy. So maybe one last question before we close the session.
I think after this, Mr. Adi will be interrogated by Ganjar.
Okay. Maybe for me, one last question. Prof.
Yeah.
So practically speaking, do we have kind of exit strategy applied to the social entrepreneurship or social business as well? Because as I discussed earlier with you at the beginning of this session, we know that in Indonesia, actually, in the context of Indonesia, we haven't seen any companies or startup that probably like they already have specific exit strategy in the market. So do you have
exit strategy, right?
Yes.
Exit strategy. That is
probably-
interesting, right? That is interesting because when we learn accounting, they call it going concern, right? Going concern principle. They establish a firm or company indefinitely. Yes, exit strategy is needed, especially for a project-based or project-based firm, stuff like that. So once you achieve your mission, then you have to stop that one. I think that happens to some context when you think about humanitarian, any kind of funding or aids for any catastrophic events. So once it is established, then it has a termination date. So that should have an exit strategy, how to to finish up everything, how to measure the impact, and what to do with any kind of resources, leftovers, things like that. That is unique in social entrepreneurship, especially specific areas, but not for commercial businesses, right?
Okay. Because I noticed some of the commercial startup or the conventional startup always mention about how they will achieve specific target, and then probably like they will let market do the rest, something like that.
Yeah, because for the business organizations, normally once they achieve the target, they come up with more or more targets or higher targets. Like then it's never ending.
Okay.
It's not like a fixed term project.
Crystal clear, Prof. Fandy. So
Okay.
it will be our last discussion for all the participants and the Prof. Fandy. Do you
Thank
have
you very
a
much.
specific closing statement from Professor Fandy and Mr. Ganjar? Prof. Fandy first.
Oh, I find that this is interesting. This is my honor, to to be in this event. Thank you very much for hosting me, and it's an opportunity to see you guys. If you are interested to explore any potential collaborations, please feel free to email me. Or here you have a contact person, Ganjar and Adi.
Mr. Adi.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Fandy. Mr. Ganjar, please.
Yes, it's an honor to have you to be our speaker for guest lecturing, Fandy, because you have a busy agenda, busy event. So to have your time to share with us is very, very an honor for us, and having you to discuss with us in this time. So I think the important thing is not just giving speech and sharing idea, but how to make it to be more sustained in the future. Maybe we can conduct more joint research, except for Adi Permana.
already did. Punishing.
Adi, you have to report to me about your research, about your publication then.
Reward him,
Maybe the easiest way to do is about doing comparison study, Pak Fandy. We can compare between New Zealand student and Indonesian student about their interest, their intention to sociopreneur research. And maybe with Raras, we can compare between New Zealand and Taiwan students also, maybe.
Yeah, it would be nice.
You already conduct many research. Maybe we can continuing become comparison research if it allow or if it possible, so we can the joint research about that. Thank you, Dr. Fandy.
Thank you very much.
Again, hopefully that it's just a beginning for more collaboration in the future days.
This is
thank you,
just a
Mr.
startup, right?
Yes, you just start. To make
Okay.
Thank you.
startup.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sama-sama.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Ya, publikasi di mana, Di? Oh, udah